Okay, so new class. Okay, so Stephen Haxford made a person class, so person, and inside the person class, he just let me just quickly delete class person. And inside here, he just made a few instance variables. Private name, private int age. Okay, let me just make this instance variables. Okay, so there's our instance variables, and he made a default constructor. So always remember, default constructor has no parameters, and it's the class name. So you can see capital letter, class name, capital letter. That's always your constructor's name. And notice that it has no parameter or no type here to return, so it doesn't even have a void. If we add a void, then it's just another method. It doesn't become a constructor. Okay, so inside our default constructor, he explains that we need to give our instance variables some default values. So in this case, we're going to just say name equals, let's say Bob as our default, and age equals 18. Okay, so now we have a person class with default constructor, setting our instance variables, giving it default values, and that was basically what he did here. Okay, so here he shows the get method, the getters and setters, or our mutators and accessors. Please in the exam refer to mutators and accessors, never refer to it as getters and setters, even though we say it's a getter and setter. Alright, so not sure why he's showing this in week 2, but a class kind of consists of mutators and accessors. Mutators. Okay, so our mutators kind of change or morph the values of our instance variables of that class. So we can say public void, usually void, set name, and it accepts a string value, and we just now declare a string and call it s. Yeah, alright, so now we just call our name variable, which is our instance variable here, and we equal it to our s variable here. So somewhere in our program we're going to instantiate this class as an object, then we're going to call this method, and then we're going to give it a value, and that value will be stored inside our instance variable for that object. So I'll explain later a bit more on that. Then accessors. Accessors are usually they usually retrieve the data of our class, so usually our instance variables. So for instance, if I want to retrieve the age, I would just say public int, because my return type is an integer. Public int get age as my method name, with no parameters, or no accepting, we're not accepting data, so we can just call it. And then we can say return. Our return keyword means that it takes whatever is here, so let's say our age variable, takes this variable here, or the information that this variable is storing, and it gives it back through our method, through the method being called. So I'll show an example in the driver just now of how this works. Yeah, so let's just compile, no syntax errors. Go back to BlueJ, there we go, and we create a new class called person driver. So person driver. Okay, that's neat. Let's just make a public class person driver. Okay, so always remember that our driver class is kind of the class where we want to start our program. So usually the driver class will have our main method, because the main method indicates to Java that we want to start our program here. So public static void main string art. Okay, that's a set thing that you can remember. It'll always be like this. It'll always have this static and void, and it's always called main. So now we can call our person class, or we can instantiate our person class. So let's say person, because our data type is person. Our variable name is p equals new, the keyword new referring to creating an object, usually new person, and this just means that we're calling the default constructor of our person class. This is like instantiating the object. This is declaring it, this part is only declaring, this part is instantiating. So we can actually break this down and we can say declare, and then we can just say p equals new person, which is instantiating. Alright. So now we can call our methods inside our person class, because it's publicly known. Methods, sorry, not the constructor. We already called the constructor. So now if we want to say get the age of the person, we can store it first in a variable, like an int age variable. So p equals p.get age, like that, and then display our age, system.out.println age. Or what we could do, let me just check, that's fine. Or what we could do is just say inside our system.out.println, we can just say p.get age directly. So we don't need this part of our code. It's kind of like useless. So yeah, and then let's say we want to mutate the person's name. Set name. We can either set it by using our string, our inverted commas, to indicate that it's a string value, and we can say person is called Sally, or we can just say string name equals Sally. Oops. And then just enter our variable name here, like that. So either or, but I mean, if you know what the person's name, if you want to change it, then you know what you want to change it to, then you can just directly do it like this. Usually this method is used for when you get like user input. So let's say you got user input here, you don't know what the input might be, and it stores it into the name variable, and now we set it. So now we can say person, yeah, we just get the age, so we can't really see. This could be add another method, or another accessor. That gives us a string, and we just say get name, because we want to see if the changes were applied to this class. So return name, compile. Now we can say system.out.println get name. Okay, compile, nothing's wrong. Now we can run it. So see here, it makes a relationship with our person class from our person driver, because we're creating an object from this class. So now we can say void main run. Okay. For some reason it's bugging. Okay, there we go. So person's age is 18, as indicated in our default constructor right there. And because we mutated the name from Bob to Sally right here in our person class, there we go, name, set name to Sally, we're getting an output Sally. Okay, if we pull our get name before we change it here, before this change happens, we can actually see what the name is going to be for our person. Oops. And it's Bob. Okay, so as you can see, we're printing out the name before we're changing it here, and it says Bob because our default constructor set the name to Bob. Okay, instance variables, methods, set name, person driver class. Yes, explained everything here. And that's basically this week. Not very hard. Maybe for week 2's work it's quite hard and difficult to understand because we haven't really covered methods even in one class yet. We're really jumping to instantiating an object, which is kind of the main point of Java, but for week 2 it's kind of pointless to do that. Alright, so we can continue to week 3 in the next video.